everybody and welcome to this video. In this video, we're having a look at number systems and it is the second video. So please watch the previous video on how do we define each of the number systems before looking at this video. So what we have are a set of numbers that we'd like to classify. So here are our numbers, and these are the different number systems that it could belong to. So just a reminder, the n is your natural numbers, the n with the naught is your whole numbers, z is integers, q are your rationals, q dash are your irrationals, r are all of your reals, and r dash are your non-real numbers. So let us start with the first one and start classifying it. So the first question over here is 3. Now what we know is that a 3 is a natural number. So remember, natural numbers are whole counting numbers. It is also a whole number because a whole numbers, everything that's a natural number is also a whole number, just that whole numbers got 0, which means that it is also an integer. And remember that the definition for a rational number is that it is a number that you can write as an integer over an integer. And in this case, 3 can be written as 3 over 1, where 3 is an integer and 1 is an integer, making it rational. What you need to know is that a number can never be rational and irrational. It's always one or the other. So if we've ticked rational, immediately it is not an irrational number. All of these are real. So if you have ticked any one of these from natural to irrational, then it is a real number. And once again, this rational and real, it can only be one of them. So if it is a real number, then it cannot be a non-real number. So you should only have one tick between those two because it can't be the both, and only one tick between rational and irrational. For real, anything, if you've ticked anywhere before, then it is a real number. Okay, let's have a look at 4.2.1. Okay, so that is a decimal, which means that it is not a natural number. If it's not a natural number, it's not a whole number. So the difference between natural numbers and whole numbers is that whole numbers is 0 plus all of the natural numbers, which this here is a decimal. It doesn't have decimal, so it isn't. Again, it's not an integer because it's got a decimal. And then it is rational. And again, 4.21, we can write it as an improper fraction as 421 over 100. And 421 is an integer and 100 is an integer, so it is a rational number. Once again, if you've ticked rational, it cannot be irrational. So it's either irrational or irrational. It can never be both. And then if you've ticked anything before, that means it is a real number and it will not be not real. 3 pi, which is 3 times pi. Now pi is an irrational number, you'll remember from the last one, which means that it is not natural, it is not a whole, it is not an integer, it is not rational, it is irrational. See, once again, you don't tick both, it's either one of the two. So 3 pi is irrational because pi is irrational, and anything added or multiplied divided by pi would still be irrational. Now everything, including our rational and irrational numbers, are real, so it will still be real, so it's not a non-real number. So if you remember our diagram, that we had first natural numbers, and then we had whole numbers, and then we had integers, and then we had rational numbers, and then irrational numbers are separate. That's why you cannot tick both, but everything over here belongs to real numbers. Okay, so then the next one is the square root of -4. Now, we've spoken about this in the last videos. If you have an even root of a negative number, it's immediately non-real. So that means we would put a cross for every single other thing because it's in the non-reals, which is in a completely different compartment. So non-real numbers, if you have an even power of a negative, and that makes sense because if you think about multiplying any negative number, let's say -2, -2 times -2, it's always going to be positive. If you multiply two negatives or an even number of negatives, you always get a positive. So that's why when you have an even root of a negative number, it's a non-real number. The last one is the cube root of 8. I can write the cube root of 8. I can simplify it. That is 2. And 2 is a natural number, which is a whole number, which is an integer, which is a rational number, which cannot possibly be irrational, which is real, and it's not non-real. Please make sure you've understood this video well on how to classify the different values. And thank you for watching, and watch the next for more information.